What is the brand strategy? So which markets are the right markets and that sort of thing. And then how seriously do you want to take it? And to answer your question, if you want to take it seriously, you have to present yourself to the local consumer as if you are a local retailer. It just happens that you are providing a different range of products than they can buy locally, whether that's at a different price or whether that is goods that aren't easily bought from a local retailer.
Welcome to the CheckoutScout tent. Today in the tent we will be talking cross-border with Dave Elston. So Dave Elston has been working retail for many years, and we'll be doing an intro to Dave and discovering his kind of journey through retail. And then we're going to be having a look at some of the technologies and methods that retailers can use to accelerate and develop and grow their cross-border business. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Mr. Dave Elston.
Thanks, Aaron. So a bit of background about myself. I've been doing e-commerce for quite a few years now. Before I was in e-commerce, I worked in store. So I started on the shop floor in record shops years and years ago, and then founded, if that's the right word, forged a career with HMV. Still on the shop floor, worked in lots of different stores, and then ended up managing HMV Oxford Circus, which was HMV's flagship store and also the world's largest record shop, which was really cool. It's now been turned into a Sports Direct, which is a bit of a sad indictment of the times. When I finished working at HMV Oxford Circus, I then joined HMV's online team. I started off in downloads and then moved more into what people would call e-commerce. Did that for a few years. HMV, I think as most people know, had a few rough times, so the job became redundant that I was doing, and that's then when I joined Clark's. And when I joined Clark's Shoes, that's when I started doing cross-border for the first time. So when I joined Clark's Shoes, the remit I was given was to launch international e-commerce for them. They've been running e-commerce in the UK for a few years, and it had been very successful, a lot more successful than they thought it was going to be, and they wanted then to start taking some of that success abroad. So the remit was to launch e-commerce into mainland Europe. So did that. We launched a number of local language sites across Europe. And then the sort of European team and the UK team came together as one team, and I managed that team for a couple of years, and then I moved on. And when I left Clark's, I then started working as an interim and as an independent consultant, and I've worked for a few brands since then, doing various different projects for them.
Cool. Did you find that starting out on the shop floor kind of helped influence and support your career in digital and e-com later on?
Yeah, because for me, e-commerce it's just retail. You're just running a shop, and a lot of those disciplines that I learned working on the shop floor, lots of cliches like retail is detail, absolutely ring true within e-commerce as well. Whether it's, basic things like your bestseller has to be front of store, so you make sure your bestsellers are at the top of your lister page. You make sure that bestseller at the top of the lister page is in stock, because otherwise it's just wasted space. Yeah. And all of those sort of things that absolutely drove home so many things that I use in e-commerce.
And when you're looking at cross-border today, what sort of challenges are you seeing retailers wrestling with, and what are the hot topics of the moment?
Well, I think over the last few years, mainland Europe has been, I'd say, probably one of the most profitable areas to go and sell cross-border from the UK. And obviously Brexit has created a number of issues which retailers are just getting to grips with. So a number of big named retailers have stopped shipping into Europe as a result of that, like John Lewis. So I think one of the biggest issues is Brexit. On the flip side of that, looking at possibly a more positive issue, I think China still represents a fantastic opportunity. It is so different culturally and operations wise that still presents a major challenge for people as well.
Do you think it's essential to translate and localize a Chinese website in this day and age, or are some kind of people delivering experiences in English?
So I think it depends. I think if I take it a step back, I think as a brand, what you want to do cross-border then comes down to a number of different things. So I think first of all, it comes down to what are the right territories for you as a brand to be selling to? You know, what is the brand? What is the brand strategy? So which markets are the right markets and that sort of thing. And then how seriously do you want to take it? And to answer your question, if you want to take it seriously, you have to present yourself to the local consumer as if you are a local retailer. It just happens that you are providing a different range of products than they can buy locally, whether that's at a different price or whether that is goods that aren't easily bought from a local retailer. Those would be the reasons why you do that. But you have to maximize the opportunity, you have to be as relevant to the local consumer as possible. Now that then presents a number of issues to the brand or the retailer, which they then may decide they don't want to go that far, and they may, you know, not localize everything. So if I look at some of the really good technologies that help you deliver cross-border, someone like Globally or eShop World, they will help with some of the localization, i.e. the checkout, and they will help get the goods to that territory, and they will manage all of the boring operational stuff like import duties and everything like that. They'll do that heavy lifting for you. So that's going part of the way. But someone like eShop World or Globally, they won't do the bit before. So the bit before the customer puts the item in the basket, they'll do the local pricing and that sort of thing, but they won't do all the other translation stuff.
Okay, so like merchandising appropriate to market, that sort of thing.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, what other sort of technologies do you think help accelerate cross-border at the moment and facilitate cross-border? You mentioned Globally and eShop World there.
You can break it down into a number of different things you need to do. You need to get people to your website. So then there's marketing you need to do, and one of the joys of cross-border is that where you get traffic from is not the same in every country. So if we use China as the example, there's no point in doing an advert, you know, paid advertising in Google in China, because you ain't going to get no one. So you need to use the appropriate marketing. And I would say at the moment, personally, I'm not aware of a technology that will help you globally around that. I think it's much better to find an agency who are experienced globally, who can then help advise and work with you on the right channels to use for the right market. I then think there's the experience that's on the website, and as you've mentioned this already, but that experience on the website, that needs, if you've made that decision, you're going to get as close to the consumer as possible. That needs to be in local language. And then you have a decision to make as to whether you are doing that content in-house or whether you're going to outsource it to a third party. If you outsource it to a third party, there's people like translations.com who do a really good job. But if you want to keep it more tightly controlled and closer to you, then you need to go in-house. You've already mentioned it. There's things like merchandising, which needs to be relevant to the local market. And you might use automated merchandising, but you're probably going to have to put some local knowledge into how that automated merchandising works. And what I mean by making sure the merchandising is appropriate is that, you know, if you're talking about clothes as an example, back to China as a country is as large, if not larger than Europe, has more time zones probably than Europe. And if you look at it from a weather perspective, has that range of hot to cold that Europe has. And if you're launching your summer season, it may not be appropriate to be launching that summer season in certain territories because they may still be in the depths of winter. So merchandising, you need to get right and appropriate for the consumer. Then there's the pieces around tax and duties and what people pay. Back to my point earlier, mainland Europe used to be really quite simple.
Yeah.
That has changed, and I don't think anybody quite worked through all the implications yet. But there are businesses out there like Avalara that are really helpful at doing some of that heavy lifting around the duties and tax for you, and that sort of thing can really help on that. Then there's payments, obviously, and payments. Payments even within Europe do change dramatically. If you look at the number of credit cards that an average person in the UK has, I think it's like 2 or 3 times the amount that a German consumer has. Germans don't like to use credit cards or debit cards. They'd rather pay by invoice, which, now Klarna is becoming a major payment type, becomes easier to manage, but you definitely need to be able to offer local payment options. And then you need to be able to get the goods to the customer, which is where people like Globally and eShop World really earn their corn in terms of doing that delivery piece, fulfillment piece for you. And then there are situations where a customer doesn't want to keep the goods and they want to return it.
Yeah.
And then you need to work out how the hell is that going to work. And there's a company called Zigzag who are really good at helping you get that return either back to the UK if you want it back in the UK, or they can actually store it locally and then use it. You can use it as a stock pool for later on down the line.
So on to a couple of light-hearted questions now, Dave, or relatively light-hearted. So if money was no object, and I'm just going to drop 100 million in your bank account here.
That'd be nice.
Theoretically, hypothetically, not reality, unfortunately. So what e-com business would you set up today if you kind of had that and say, oh, actually, I've got this great idea, I'm going to go off and do this?
So a couple of years ago, about a year or so ago, I was working for a fragrance business in London. And we had some great conversations there about some of the opportunities in the market. And fragrance is almost the perfect e-commerce product because the margins are good. The margins are really good on fragrance. The returns are brilliant because the returns are really small. Clark's, I sold shoes into Germany and I had returns rates over 50%. So that was quite challenging to deal with. Fragrance, you're talking about returns rates less than 5%. Wow. Maybe even less than 2.5%. So fragrance is the perfect e-commerce product. There's one handicap with fragrance is that if you're introducing a new fragrance to someone, at the moment they can't smell it online. So I would definitely want to do something around fragrance. And how can you instigate that smell over the internet? And that's possibly a little bit away at the moment. So then something around how you get samples to people, how you follow up on those samples through your CRM, a subscription model, and that sort of thing. And I'm possibly going slightly off the track now, but there's a music website I love called Bandcamp.
Okay. So
Bandcamp help a lot of independent bands and independent labels. They aggregate all this music. It's completely international. You can buy records there that will get sent to you from the States, everything like that. So something like with fragrance, with Bandcamp, that the approach that Bandcamp take and that sort of thing would be something I'd love to do.
Bandcamp for fragrance.
Yeah, absolutely, it'd be great.
Be with Oda Dave. Thank you very much for sitting in the CheckoutScout tent with us and chatting through cross-border. It's been instructional. There's a couple of things for me that really stood out there. I think one was obviously that Brexit challenge and some of the tools like Globally, eShop World, Avalara that help can support on some of those kind of paperwork exporting challenges. And the other one was obviously the Ode to Dave fragrance idea, which I think is a fabulous idea. So I haven't patented the words Ode for Dave. I'm just going to go and register the brand now.
Oh, so. Good. Okay, well, I'll buy the domain off you later this week.
Thank you very much for your time.
No problem. Cheers. See you soon. Bye.